Hello, this is Marcus Washington for Making the Cut with your post-fight Porter versus Crawford. Crawford wins and established in the 10th round when Porter's corner uh, called the fight after two knockdowns in the round. Beautiful, beautiful check punch there by Crawford on the first knockdown, combination on the second knockdown. As I said, I was going to be on post game no matter whether my prediction came true or not. It did not. I thought that Porter would be able to pull the upset, but when it boiled down to was Porter did the one thing he could not do. He started getting into the habit of lunging, and because he was lunging, and it was said throughout the broadcast, lunging was going to get him in trouble, and it did get him in trouble. Now going into that last round, I did have um, Crawford up by a point. I had him up 86-85 going into the 10th and deciding round, what ended up being the deciding round. I thought that Porter had fought a great fight. I can't wait to see the official scorecards to see where judges had it in comparison to where I had it. But Crawford had a pretty dominant last minute of the ninth round, which is why I gave him the ninth round. I thought that the first 2 minutes of the round, Porter was slightly ahead, and then Crawford started hitting them with some good punches near the end of the ninth round. I felt like that's where the end ended up beginning, was that last minute of the ninth round that led into the 10th round, an early knockdown by Crawford again when Porter came in, lunged with his head down. Again, the one thing he couldn't do, and I think part of it was those two overhand rights that had landed back in the eighth round. I think he was trying to find a way to get back to that overhand right. He was getting impatient. He had been patient those first 7 rounds or so. I thought he got impatient. He landed those two punches, and it's like he was trying to find those two, that overhand right again. And he tried to force it again. And then when you try to force it on a guy like Bud Crawford with his skill, with his speed, with his power, with his 4.5 inch length advantage, this is what happens. And it shows you why Porter is Porter. I mean, why Crawford is Crawford, and why he's up on that pound to pound list, first, second, third, however you want to rank where Canelo is, so on and so forth. But he proved it today, because he proved it against a guy that's a bulldog, a guy who fought for the most part, into the last 2 rounds, a smart fight. And Crawford did what I didn't think he would do. I thought that he would get impatient. And at times he did get impatient. Kudos to Crawford's corner. I mean, yeah, to Crawford's corner. Because every time he got impatient, they reminded him that he needed to be patient in box. And that basically the opportunity will eventually show up. Let the opportunity show up. Don't try to force it. And because they gave him that advice, hey, he comes out with a 10th round stoppage against a guy that is so tough to stop. I mean, hats off to Crawford for the fight that he fought. But I'm telling you, I cannot say enough about Crawford's corner and how they advised him throughout that fight, and how they kept him reining in anytime he strayed away and started doing those exchanges. When he got back to the corner in that round, they hammered it home. Keep boxing them, keep boxing them. And then later in the fight, I think it was before the ninth round, they said, now it's time to turn it up. I mean, perfect. And this is where corners can make all the difference in the world, because you could see at times Bud really wanted to turn this into an alley fight, which is a fight that allows Crawford a pathway to win. But his corner kept him in check. His corner got him to execute the game plan, and his corner played a big part in the 10th round stoppage. You got to take his hat off to him. Even if Crawford won, I did not think it was going to be by stoppage. I thought that at the very least, if Porter won, if Crawford won, at the very least, it would come on the scorecards. The idea that he stopped Porter is huge, and it sets up, like I said, I don't want to jump ahead, but it sets up probably what's going to be a matchup with Errol Spence Jr. That's the next thing, especially if Crawford seeks out other representation, or if Top Rank and PBC can finally, and maybe this was the predecessor, this was a Top Rank PBC fight. Maybe in the background it was, hey, look, he beats Porter, we'll find a middle ground to finally get Crawford Spence. And maybe that's ultimately what's going to happen. And even if it's a one fight thing, Crawford stays with Top Rank. But right now, that's another conversation for another day. The conversations tonight was just how impressive Terrence Crawford was against a top-notch opponent. Unreal, man. It got to tip his cap off to him. Again, Porter made those mistakes. He could not lunge. He ends up lunging. He ends up paying the price. But if you weren't with me earlier, I said it earlier, I think the last minute of the 9th round was the beginning of the end for Porter. If you go back and watch that last minute, you'll see that Crawford was in a good place, that Porter was starting to return to those bad habits, and Crawford was taking every advantage of each mistake that Porter made in that last minute of the 9th, and that led to the 10th. I think in Crawford's heart of hearts, I think he knew he had him when he came to the corner after the 9th, and he put him away in the 10th, which is what great fighters do. He's a generational fighter, is what great fighters do. Hey, hats off. So my prediction was wrong. For those who watched my pregame, I thought that Porter would be able to pull the upset. Gave the reasons why I thought Porter could pull off the upset. And look, first 8 rounds, like I said, I have not seen official scorecards. When I do, and maybe I'm wrong once I see it there, first 8 rounds, it was going to be anyone's fight. Those last 4 rounds was going to decide the fight. And the last 4 rounds did decide the fight. It started in round 9. It did not make it to 12, but it started in round 9. And again, Terrence Crawford was able to take advantage of every mistake from that point on that Porter made. And again, it's one thing to see the mistakes. It's another thing to take advantage of the mistakes in the way that Crawford took advantage of the mistakes. And again, it's why he's a generational fighter. It's why he's near the top or on top of every pound for pound list. So kudos, Terrence Crawford. I missed out on that one. Like I said, I'm going to admit beforehand I had Porter, but definitely a good fight. And these fights are great for all boxing fans. So it's late here. It is 12:35 a.m. on the East Coast. I am wrapping this up. You guys have a good night. Hey, look, NFL picks in the morning. And again, MTC with Mook, you see it down there. Check my Twitter feed. We'll be making NFL picks in the morning. Okay. You guys have a great night. Congratulations to Terrence Crawford on a spectacular win, 10th round stoppage over Porter.